Hello, welcome to a basics video for As Far as the Eye. This is going to get you the information that you need to get started with this wonderful city builder game that is so unique in that your city travels from location to location, gathering resources and knowledge in order to get from one place to another until you reach the Eye, a presumably safe place from an oncoming calamity known only as the Flood. The Flood is going to chase you, and if it ever catches your city, you will lose the game. In order to avoid that, you need to know how to play. Now, while the tutorial system is great, I'm going to give you the information according to what is important to start, and the rest will be up to you. Now, very first, before we get into the game, we need to select a tribe. I'm going simply to play game in this, and there are a few things you'll need to know when selecting your tribe. These ribbons are the difficulty, and I do recommend if this is your first game to try out the West tribe to go through the tutorial. It's fairly simple. We have 3 pupils, each of which consume 6 rations every turn. So that's 18 rations, and we start with 1600. We'll have a fair few turns to get going before we need to worry about food. They also start with 3 random positive and 3 random negative traits. You'll see that the difficulty for the South tribe is in between West tribe and the 2 remaining East and North tribes, and the pupils will vary, the traits will vary, and the vagaries will vary. Vagaries are something that we will need to worry about, but we'll cover a little bit later. Now that we've actually selected our tribe, we are able to check out our map. This map is different every time, but it is a representation of our journey from where we start to the Eye, our safe place from the oncoming flood. Now, we have a location we can click on, and this will actually start the true gameplay, but I want to cover why the map is important first. When we're looking at our map, you may see a similarity to games like Slay the Spire, because it is procedurally generated and getting you from point A to point B, depending on the choices that you make. If I were to select this northern area, I would have access to the top 2 areas, whereas I were to have only these bottom 2 areas if I were to select this southern area. Now, why would I choose one or another? We can see a little bit about the resources that we're going to have in the icons as well as the size of the map. But beyond that, there's also a requirement to get to each area. Here, we would be required to get 225 or 270 wool and 120 wood. Once we have those resources, which we'll be gathering on our main map, then we'll be able to progress from this first area to this second area, taking some of our resources and even some of our buildings with us. Now, if I were to go here, we would have a lesser cost of 150 of these cereals and only 150 of the wool, but we would require a grower 2, which is a more experienced pupil. Now, this is important because we need to know exactly what our goal is to get to the Eye. If we don't follow our goals by selecting that or that, then we won't be able to progress from one area to the other. So select the area that you think you're going to be able to get to, and note that you can change this at any time before you actually move. Once you move, your decision is locked in, and you'll need to progress from there. So let's get into the actual gameplay though. Now, as the game begins, you're going to be taken to a map, and these maps are randomly generated with various resources. To look around, you may use the arrow keys or just simply scroll at the edges, scroll your mouse wheel up and down to zoom in and out, and if you want to change your perspective, simply hold the middle mouse button and slide from side to side. It's quite beautiful close up and quite informative scrolled out, but whatever your view preference, your most important unit in this game is your caravan. When we're selecting our caravan, it's going to be the center point for our initial gameplay. And with that, we have a movement of 2. This means under ideal circumstances, we can move 2 tiles at any given time, or we can move 1 tile if the terrain is difficult. Some terrain we cannot pass over, such as mountains, but in this case we don't want to pass over that. We'll simply select this movement, and in order to actually enact this action, we're going to simply click next turn. Now, when I hover over next turn, note that it tells you how long you have before the flood comes. And if the flood ever catches up with your halt, you will lose the game. That said, now that we're here, we can install our caravan and settle. When we settle, our pupils will unload, and our pupils have multiple actions that they can take. But first, their actions are really limited by our caravan. If we want to gather pack animals, which are needed for advanced buildings, if we want to harvest pepkins, which can be used as food substitutes or turned into food at advanced buildings, or if we want to harvest wood, which is the base material for almost any building, we can do that. Anything else will require construction. And I'm going to get into harvesting and building in our next video, so make sure you check that out. If this has been helpful to you, let me know below. In the meantime, I am Nidanoski, and as always, have fun.